I'm going to jump in with content warnings for this week's episode before we get started. We are talking about Metal Gear Solid, so a lot of these topics are things that come in part with Metal Gear Solid. Whenever we are talking about or recommending a piece of media that maybe you aren't super familiar with, we would really encourage you to check out doesthedogdie.com. That website not only tracks if animals die in media, but also tracks a whole host of other potential triggers, and because it is crowdsourced by numerous users, you end up with a more comprehensive list. So, as always, approach all media with caution for yourself. Be aware of tags, archive warnings, and any potential triggers for yourself. That said, particular content warnings for this episode include, but are not limited to, COVID-19, anti-masking, the U.S. military, war crimes, weapons of mass destruction, child soldiers, military propaganda, QAnon, military censorship, lesbophobia and the male lesbian power fantasy, homophobia, sexual assault and rape, don't ask, don't tell, as well as mentions of PTSD. All of these things might be passing mention or they might be talked on more at length. With that said, let's get into the episode. Hi, welcome to Author's Note.
Don't listen.
My name is Cass.
And my name's Teese.
Teese.
Yeah?
How you doing? Teese, how did I find you today?
So, Cass and I usually set up a time for when we are going to record the episode. And so I get a text from Cass earlier today saying, hey, we're going to have to push back an hour. I'm going grocery shopping, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that works for me because I just finished up the episode outline. And so I finished up my outline. I read it over and I was like, shit, I still got 20 minutes left. So I've had a very busy morning. So I popped into my shower with a canned coffee and I get a message from Cass at 4 on the dot saying, I'm ready, where are you? And I just send a picture of me in the shower drinking coffee. And here I am, fresh, clean, showered, coffee in hand.
Caffeinated?
Actually, can I spray some nasal spray in my stinky little nose so I'm not nasally this whole entire episode?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Beerb.
I forget what episode it was, but I remember messaging Teese to be like, are you coming down with a cold? You sound a little congested in this episode. I've started using eye drops, actually, because my eyes get quite dry because I work with computers. Well, yeah, I mean, we all do at this point, really, don't we? But I have to sit at a computer for long hours, and also a lot of my leisure time is spent at computers. So my eyes hurt quite a bit and they get very dry. So I've started using eye drops, and the brand that I got is called Genteel Tears. And I'm wondering if they're Hasidic. Like, are they Jewish? I'm not sure.
Who is?
I'll look into it, though. I'll let you guys know. Welcome back, Teese.
Oh, boy.
I had a wonderful little time. You'll have to listen to the podcast to find out what I was talking about.
Okay, I hope me mumbling singing in the background.
No, I'll cut that out. No
okay,
means.
cool. Can I tell you a little story that's media adjacent?
Yeah, absolutely, because I have nothing to talk about, so I was also going to tell a story.
Perfect. So, on neopet.com, there are albums that you can add stamps and coins to, like if you're a stamp collector. Okay. And one of the pages is titled Mobile Games. And in the past years, there have been 3 Neopets mobile game app phone game things. And one is worse than the other. So there are people who willingly play these games and then get the in-game items to sell at a very high price. Mm-hmm. So I have taken it upon myself to play the game and then get said album items so I don't have to pay those high prices. Mm-hmm. So this past week, I've been playing this awful Candy Crush knockoff. And So you could just kind of do like one of those, yes, I will pay for 5 more turns type deal for $1 or whatever situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at the end of the day, like, my game's not terrible, but like I've maybe spent like $5 or $6 this past week or whatever. Like, I know in the grand scheme of things, that's for a phone game. Like, why are you spending that much money? But also, like, I just want this over with, you know? Like, I don't spend that much money on Neopets.
Check out our fun, cool episode on gacha games and paying to play games in our 4th, 5th episode.
I think it's our 5th
something
episode.
like that.
Yeah. But
Jala's with us on that, our cover artist.
Yeah. So I just took a few minutes. However, iTunes locked my Apple account because I was
suspicious activity.
Yeah. They're like, why do you keep buying $1 worth of plays on I'm like, oh my god, please. Like, is it not bad enough that I have to deal with this? So then I had to go
This is how the children win.
Literally. And then I had to go into my middle school email because my iTunes account was still attached to my middle school email.
Oh my god.
It was so shameful. So that's what I brought to Media Corner today. What about you?
So I went grocery shopping.
Yeah.
And it's a Sunday. Mm-hmm. So, and it's also really beautiful out down here today. Okay. So, you know, it is warm, but very breezy, very comfortable. Mm-hmm. And so everybody is like out and about. The parking lot for Trader Joe's was completely full. I mean, I was doing... It's a very small parking lot because it's a relatively small Trader Joe's. I mean, most Trader Joe's aren't that big, actually, now that I think about it. But it's a very tiny parking lot, and I'm doing rounds, and I'm, like, waiting and waiting and waiting to get one. And I think I maybe drove around this parking lot for, like, 10, 15 minutes, like, trying to time it right. And I'm not a person who feels comfortable, like, stealing another spot from a person if they're clearly staking it out. Like, another 5 minutes off my clock isn't going to kill me in the long run. Yeah. I have the leisure of time. My podcast can wait. So it took me a while to get a spot, and then I had to wait for a person to rearrange, like, all 12 of their grocery bags because they didn't like how they'd been packed. So they were, like, reorganizing them before they put them into their car. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna sit here. And then, you know, of course, there's a line out the door because Trader Joe's down here has blessedly been very, very good about capacity. I'm in Florida, by the way, if you wanted an indicator on how things are going for me. And afterward, I was like, you know what? I want a little treat. I want to give myself something nice. So I am going to go to this very nice little cafe that is right up the block and has macarons because I want some and they're wonderful. And I walked in and oh my god, I know it's bad. I know it's really bad. But sometimes I forget how bad it is, and then I walk into a restaurant that is completely full of people who aren't wearing masks, who are sitting shoulder to shoulder and just do not give a fuck. And I'm like, I know you aren't all vaccinated. And it just reinstills this fear in me of people lying about vaccination status and like the re-entry into society and how that is going to go. And I have some pretty reoccurring frustration with... I don't think Americans as a whole understand mask etiquette the way a lot of like East Asian countries do. If you put your mask on, that's staying on the entire time you're out of the house. It should be. If you are in your car, that is one thing. If you're going through the drive-thru, your mask needs to be on. If you are walking through a parking lot, your mask needs to be on. I don't care how desolate it is. Put your freaking mask on. Oh my god, I know that people come to our podcast as like a fun little joy and reprieve, but also, oh my god, please wear your mask, even if you're vaccinated. Oh, that's my fun little story for the day.
Oh, okay. What kind of macarons did you get?
Salty caramel.
Ooh, tasty.
I'm very excited for them. I'm in a very good mood, by the way. I'm very excited for this week's episode. I hope that didn't put anybody in a stinky mood, but I just had to get that out there. I think I just wanted something to talk about because I'm not going to be talking a lot this episode, and if I'm not heard, what's even the point of this, you know?
I feel like...
my narcissism is too great for that.
I love that for you. So, today we're going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid.
That was a long pause.
The emotional turmoil I've felt in these past 7 days while making this outline. Cass, tell me, what do you know about Metal Gear Solid?
Okay. So,
Yeah.
everything I know about Metal Gear Solid has largely come from dude bros my entire life trying to convince me of its genius for what I understand are all the wrong reasons.
Okay.
I know that, okay, I'm going to list all of the random errata I know about Metal Gear Solid because it's not a lot. I know
Cool.
virtually nothing about the series. I don't know anything about the plot. I know that at one point there's this dude who kind of looks like a buff Ted Cruz, and maybe he's the president, but he also becomes like a bioengineered meat Hulk kind of dude. There's a dog named D-Dog, which is short for Diamond Dogs, which is like the organization one of the snakes works for. For a very long time, I did not understand that there were several discrete different snakes, and there's like Big Boss, but Big Boss Snake is not the same as like there's a really big woman who's a boss, I guess, somewhere. At one point, Old Ocelot kisses Snake on the cheek, and it's a really kind of weird moment, but fans are like, oh my god, this game is really gay, and I understand the game is really gay. I have issues with Miss Quiet and her character design. Snake goes in a box sometimes, and I also recognize that little alert noise by sound where it's like
Perfect.
I think that's everything.
I love that.
Wait.
Yeah.
Can I try and name all the snakes that I know?
Yes.
Okay. Venom Snake, Liquid Snake, Solid Snake. Those are the only ones I know.
Okay, cool. You did a good job.
Thank
There's
you.
like 3 other snake names, but that's fine. Don't worry.
Holy shit.
Yeah, there's also Solidus, Naked, and Dead Snake as well.
Snaked.
Snaked. So you did a really good job, all things considered. So while you've heard dude bro explanations about Metal Gear Solid, I am going to talk to you about why Metal Gear Solid is inherently gay.
Okay.
And why and how Kojima tried to mask it in a way, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I like a lot of time, like, obviously, let's be real, with Metal Gear Solid, it's one of those things that I would love to do an episode on this one day, how depending on your representation of gender and sexuality kind of helps skew this game for you. And like a lot of other series, like I know Yakuza is a really good example of it as well, and like Golden Kamuy and stuff like that or whatever. With this in particular, I was kind of just looking at like the historical information that we have about LGBT people within the military in like the past. Not like don't ask, don't tell, but like when could you have been gay in the military and it was fine, you know? And then I also talked about just like the anti-war sentiment and how we can almost use the core belief that war is not a good thing in relation to relationships and love.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid's view of the military is more based on Western military as opposed to...
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. But it is made by Kojima chiefly. Yes. Who is a Japanese man.
Yes, it's made by Hideo Kojima. He was really inspired by a lot of Western movies and pop culture, and he wanted to originally work in film and then ended up working in game development,
which really explains so much.
Yeah, and that explains also why like Snake looks like Mr. Pliskin Escape from New York and stuff like that as well. So I guess I want to start off at the beginning, so to say, and Metal Gear Solid is a tactical espionage game. Basically, it's kind of like a hide and seek in a PlayStation 1 game, and there's guns and government secrets. It was originally made in 1998. However, Metal Gear Solid is a sequel to the Metal Gear franchise, which spanned from 1987 to 1990, and that was 3 games on the MSX2 computers, and Hideo Kojima was the creator of them. And I just want to preface this episode by saying, please be gentle with me. There are some Metal Gear fans out there who know the lore better than they know themselves. And I salute you, but I'm not one of those people. I've only been into this series for 3 years. I salute you, but like that ain't me, you know? So if you do want to continue this discussion in a calm and nice way, I'm glad to talk to you about it. I'm glad to learn more opinions or more dialogue that you think might help this case. Or, you know what, even pitch us an episode if you so feel inclined. We'd love to have you.
So we have had a few instances of people coming forward to, I'm just going to be honest, rather rudely correct us on really nitpicky information. And I understand the urge for that. I do. But I think especially with the aim of our podcast and a lot of the message we try to promote is like that sort of gatekeeping or really mean-spirited flexing of your knowledge is not... It's not unwelcome here, but I would ask you to consider what you get from it. If the point is just that, like, you want to know more than us, then that's totally cool. But we would be, like, much more interested if, like, you wanted to have a conversation with us about that kind of thing. Criticism is delivered in constructive fashions. It's not... Don't bully us.
Please.
Do not bully us, especially for something so silly as like a lot of nerd culture stuff that we're talking about, you know? I think a lot of it too is like, it's a lot of, I think my experience with it has been fans who that has always been their experience, where people have been, you know, very mean-spirited about correcting their knowledge. And it's like, okay, I understand that, like, this has kind of been the way it has been for a very long time, but I think Teese and I both believe that we would much rather an open, welcoming community that is a little bit more lax about the super duper fine facts of whether or not something was, you know, published in this magazine or that magazine or what have you, you know? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about the representation of these materials and what they mean to us and how they affect fan culture as opposed to...
And a lot of the stuff is also just said on the fly. Like, I'm not Googling furiously as I check.
We are not a hyper-produced podcast. We are conversational, you know?
Yeah, we are just two people in our bedrooms, you know? So.
I'm not in my bedroom.
Well, your office, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm in my bedroom. I'm in my childhood bedroom team. Been in this room since I was 6 years old, and I'm, for the past 20 years, like, this is still my childhood bedroom. Yeah. So anyway, the franchise itself, since... according to Wikipedia, December 2020, has sold 56.9 million copies worldwide, and certain games have been critically and commercially acclaimed and have received several awards. So, you know, the series is pretty legit. There's a reason why there's such a big fan culture around it, and there's still such a huge following despite the last game coming out in like 2015. Yeah. Metal Gear Solid is also best known for popularizing stealth games, cinematic cutscenes, and breaking the fourth wall. So, there's that.
Hot shit.
Yeah, and this series itself has made, obviously, games, but there's novelizations, there's movies, there's pachinko machines, there's drama CDs, there was even a board game in the works, so on and so forth. And you could even see our good pal, Mr. Snake, in Super Smash Bros., in Ape Escape 3, but most importantly, in my dreams when I go to sleep because I love him.
Now, where are people getting access to your dreams? Because I would like that technology.
That is not available yet. That is $2,000 Patreon.
Coming soon to the Oculus Rift. Teese Dream Sim.
That's welcome to our indie game, Teese Dream Sim. I'm Teese, and these are my dreams. So the timeline of these games are really long and really convoluted. And
if you don't get every fact and facet about this right, Teese, I will bully you.
Well, guess what? I read a Wikipedia article and I watched a Drunk Metal Gear History Explained video series. So I got right to the source. So these games actually span the timeline of the 1950s during the space race, all the way till 2018 with Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. And that is to say, who knows if we'll ever receive another Metal Gear Solid game now that Kojima is no longer a part of Konami and has his own studio. Only time will tell if Kojima was able to take Metal Gear in the divorce, essentially. Like, we don't know. Kojima.
I don't know that he was, right? Because they tried to release a They released like a pinball game or something.
Yeah,
and
something
people were like,
recently.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, so we don't really know what's going on with the status of Metal Gear right now, which really
Yeah,
sucks.
I don't know how Konami's doing, like fiscally. And
Yeah.
I think our best chance at a lot of the properties from Konami that we love is like kind of waiting for Konami to go a little belly up or become desperate and make connections with other studios or for another studio to buy them out. God forbid. It's a mess.
And Kojima Productions have only made one game so far, so we really don't know what's up so far.
Welcome to Death Stranding.
Yeah. So I doubt Kojima needs introduction from anybody, but in case if you do need one, Hideo Kojima is a video game creator and developer, and he's best known for Metal Gear Solid and Police Knots and loving his two best friends, Mads Mikkelsen and Norman Reedus. In 2015, yeah.
It's Moss. It's not
what?
Mads. It's
what?
Moss. It's Moss.
Oh no.
Nobody ever says it right, but it's pronounced more like Moss than it is Mads.
Interesting. Well. Egg on my face. In 2015, he left Konami to make his own studio, Kojima Productions, which we were just talking about. They've released Death Stranding in 2019. That's it so far. His games usually focus on the human condition, creating a better world, and the dangers of mankind's greed.
You didn't mention my favorite Kojima creation, which is PT.
Oh, shut up.
No, I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't understand.
I love PT.
Really? You know what it is? I just feel like PT's a demo, and I'm just like, we as a society need to move past PT.
No, I need to sit in it. I want to live in it. We're still finding stuff out about it.
You want to live in the sink, baby sink?
I love that sink baby.
I know you do.
He is perfect. He's a gushy little gummy bear. I want to pick him up and carry him around with me
You
everywhere.
love little funky fetuses.
I really do.
Have you played Death Stranding at all?
Okay, so a year ago at
Anime I know the
NYC, story. A year ago at Anime NYC, I really wanted to pick up Death Stranding, but I could not justify the price tag to myself. And I said, hey, if you come to my table and buy me a digital copy of Death Stranding, I will give you one of everything I have at my table.
And somebody did it?
Someone did it. Yay! So I have it, and I haven't played it.
Well, I never really finished it.
But I just haven't set aside the time for it yet, and I'm in this weird loop where, like, I don't want to play it until I've finished playing Nier Automata, which I got set back in playing because I did all of 2B's storyline and got, like, halfway through 9S's on my friend's PS4, and then I had to leave, and so I couldn't finish on their PS4, and so I have to restart with 2B on my PS4.
I'll play it for you. I like 2B's line.
I'm probably going to watch somebody play through it. Okay, anyway, that actually brings up a good point. Can I wish Kojima were more like Yoko Taro. I have more respect for Yoko Taro because Yoko Taro will actually admit the fact that he just wants to draw hot women. Like, he just wants to draw women in skimpy outfits. But Kojima's like, no, Quiet needs to breathe through her skin, so she has to wear spandex. Oh, no. It's not... That pisses me off. I'm still mad about that. I don't care if he came out afterward and was like, yeah, I just wanted to draw in skimpy clothes. No, admit it from the forefront and I will have more respect for you, sir.
I'm going to talk about something else that's going to make you very mad in a little bit, so sorry.
I'm
King.
sure. I'll shut up for now. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I love to hear your input, especially as somebody who knows very little about Metal Gear. I love this for you. I really hope... My goal with this episode is to, like, get you to interact with Metal Gear in some form after this, I feel like.
I mean, I like the fan art.
Yeah. So
what's his name? Who plays Pliskin?
David Hayter?
No.
Or Kurt Russell?
Yeah, Kurt Russell. My favorite Solid Snake, Bill Hader. It's Richie Tosher's birthday.
Is it? Well, yeah. David Hayter's the voice actor for Solid Snake. And
that's nice.
Yeah, that's why I said David Hayter. But
for a long time I thought Pliskin was a character in Metal Gear.
He does use the last name Pliskin in game.
Oh my fucking god!
Like he uses
Kojima.
I know he's not subtle at all about it. Metal Gear Solid begins technically with Metal Gear 3. It's the 60s, with Naked Snake being sent into the jungles of Russia. Yes, the jungles of Russia, to rescue a Russian defector. He is also tasked with killing the boss, his mentor, while working with the US military. Snake, this game is best known for Snake climbing up a ladder, and Snake Eater plays. You fight a sexy young gunslinger twink named Revolver Ocelot. He kills the boss, and because Naked Snake kills the boss, that's what makes him Big Boss. Obviously, there's more to know about this game, but these are just brief overviews. Sorry, these plot summaries also include spoilers. I'm just giving you a general rundown, just so you can kind of figure out the timeline of this game. So, 10 years after the time of Metal Gear 3 happens, we have Portable Ops, which I'm not talking about, and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Big Boss is now head of the MSF, which is the... I can't do accents. Militaires Sans Frontières. Militaries Without Borders. A mercenary for hire group, the MSF, discovers that there are warheads being transported all over Latin America. They actively try to stop these warheads. This is the first time Kazuhira Miller makes his first appearance. Then, about 2 weeks after the final scene in Peace Walker, we have Ground Zeroes, and then Ground Zeroes' second part is Phantom Pain. So Ground Zeroes is a direct sequel to Peace Walker and focuses on the aftermath of Peace Walker. Big Boss rescues 2 U.S. military prisoners off the coast of Cuba in an attempt to fly back to Mother Base. After dealing with these prisoners of war, his and another helicopter collides, and it sends Big Boss to the hospital for 9 years after waking up, which is then Phantom Pain. After waking up, BB discovers that Kaz and Ocelot have formed the Diamond Dogs, which is another effort similar to the MSF after it's been abandoned after the aftermath of Peace Walker. The Phantom Pain includes a lot of stuff that's really convoluted and is the most recent game in the series. And it includes stuff like a virus that will turn you into a zombie for speaking any language other than Navajo. I am a Liquid Snake apologist, and he is a bratty little child in it. But most importantly, Big Boss is not actively Big Boss in this game. He just happens to be a guy that was on the medical staff from the helicopter crash who was brainwashed and plastic surgeryed into believing that he is Big Boss. So this is when Venom
Holy
Snake...
shit.
Yeah, so this is when Venom Snake comes to play. He's actually Venom Snake. The real Big Boss, meanwhile, went to go fuck off and hide and create something called Outer Heaven, which is a place for soldiers to live basically unhinged and lawless and to do whatever the fuck they want.
Boo.
I know, boo.
Boo.
So, fast forward to now, like, the late-ish 80s, and this is the original Metal Gear game. So Solid Snake is a rookie of Foxhound. He was just trained by Master Kazuhira Miller.
Wait.
Yeah?
Who is Solid Snake?
Solid Snake is Mr. Snavid, best known for original Metal Gear Solid. So he is a little baby boy who was in the military.
Okay.
Yeah. So
no relation to Big Boss or Venom Snake, though.
Well, you will
Jesus Christ.
read down and you will find out, Caspian.
Okay.
So, freshly trained by Master Miller, he's sent by Big Boss to Outer Heaven in South Africa. So he does have some coordinates with Big Boss and Miller and Foxhound, all the stuff. So he goes to South Africa, is sent on a mission to find a missing squad member, Grey Fox, and then to investigate a little known weapon, perhaps you've heard of it, called the Metal Gear. In a twist, Solid Snake discovers that Big Boss is the leader of Outer Heaven. Solid Snake kills him, but hold up, that wasn't actually Big Boss, that was just Venom Snake. So that brings us to Metal Gear 2, where Big Boss is now just doing the same exact shit, just in a different location. It's about a few years later, it's 1999, and he's now just running a military nation called Zanzibar Land. And this time, Solid Snake kills Big Boss, lights him on fire. And that's when you discover that Big Boss is Solid Snake's clone dad. Does that
Okay,
answer
his
your question?
clone dad.
Yes. So that's why
Big
all
Boss
snakes...
didn't fuck.
No.
To
But
procreate, I should say.
Yeah. It's kind of insinuated that, like, Big Boss does fuck, but he has a whole bunch of clones, and that's why all the snakes look the same, because they're all clones kind of deal. So
I mean, it's the ideal male form, is Kurt Russell.
Yeah, basically, Naked Snake was one big baddie, and they're like, oh shit, we're never going to get anybody as good as this, let's clone him. And that's what happens. So we finally now...
He's like Master Chief.
Yeah. So now we are finally at Metal Gear Solid. That's how many games it takes to get to Metal Gear Solid. So Metal Gear Solid takes place in 2005, and Solid Snake's twin brother, Liquid Snake, is basically just causing problems. He is the new leader of Foxhound and has taken over a weapons disposal facility in Alaska and is now controlling Metal Gear Rex.
Is it a giant T-Rex?
No, it's just another big ass Metal Gear, essentially.
What does a Metal Gear look like?
It's a weapon of mass destruction. Let me look it up.
So is it like a warhead?
Kinda, but it's also a mecha.
Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah.
It's a big boy.
It is a bipedal mech, not dissimilar from things you would see in a lot of mecha anime.
Yeah.
Of like the military drone equivalents, not so much your like piloted Gundams or anything. It doesn't have like arms or...
So Liquid's demands are that the remains of Big Boss is returned to him, or Metal Gear Rex will be released and create havoc. Snake destroys the Rex. He kills all of the renegade members of Foxhound except for Revolver Ocelot for some reason, and then rescues Metal Gear Rex's creator, Hal Emmerich, better known as Otacon. Cass, do you know what Otacon stands for?
Well, yeah, because it's literally like con that I went to for a very long time, and it's an otaku convention.
It sure is.
Is that genuinely what his name is a reference to?
Literally, the first meeting of Hal and Dave is Dave scaring Hal so bad that he pisses his pants, and he's like,
"Who's Dave?"
Solid Snake. I'm sorry. Is basically Otacon going, "Are you an otaku too?"
Beautiful.
It's awful. I love it. So, by the way, surprise, there's a third Snake clone brother, and he is the antagonist of Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. And he's called Solidus Snake. And he's also...
Is this the one that looks like Jared from the Subway commercials?
I think so, yeah.
Oh my god. The Ted Cruz looking motherfucker?
Yeah.
He did not get the good Kurt Russell gene.
No, he didn't. And neither does Liquid either.
I'm here to pop in and tell you after the fact that I looked this up because I wanted to be sure of it. The guy who looks like Jared is actually, in fact, Stephen Armstrong. Apparently he was a senator and he was going to run for president. Solidus does not look like Jared from the Subway commercials.
But Solidus Snake is the fucking president, and of course he's like he gets like to be privy to all the secret information about a group called the Patriots. And instead of learning how to paint or starting a podcast like certain other presidents, when his term is up, Solidus when his term is up, Solidus decides to take control of Big Shell, which is another corporation thing, and
I wonder what that's in reference to.
Yeah, and work with the Patriots, which is developing a mobile undersea fortress to house AIs that can influence human development by filtering availability of information on the internet. And
dear God,
that aged very poorly, but Kojima just does that pretty often. He just ends up predicting stuff that's like really on the nose.
I don't think that's uncommon for sci-fi.
No, not at all.
I mean, it's when you are a talented sci-fi writer, you know, however you want to take the term talented to mean, it is not so hard to look ahead of where our technological advancements are now and question what kind of problems is that going to create, and then to work from that.
Yeah. So, Metal Gear Solid 2 lets you control Raiden. He's pretty.
Is it Raiden or Raiden?
I always say Raiden, but it might
I
be
thought it was
Raiden.
pronounced Raiden.
I don't know. Maybe it's Raiden. Either way, someone's probably going to yell at me. So in the long run, it doesn't fucking matter. So he's a child soldier turned adult soldier. It turns out President Solidus Snake was his childhood soldier commander. So Snake and Raiden team up, kick Ocelot's ass because Ocelot's there and he's just working with Solidus and the Patriots. And then, guess what? But Liquid Snake's dead corpse haunted hand possesses Ocelot.
Is this the red arm?
Yeah. No, that's Venom's. That's a little robot.
God damn.
So, what ends up happening is that Ocelot loses
Why does
his arm
Ocelot have his arm?
because his arm gets sliced off, and because there's little nanotechnology in Liquid's body still, it's able to regenerate and attach to Ocelot's arm, and that's why Ocelot gets possessed, because the arm was still alive and they kind of like mind melded.
I love that you were saying this to me as if it is the most obvious thing in the world, and I'm just here like, okay.
I was writing this up and I was like, Cass is gonna be so scared and confused.
I feel like I'm at a QAnon meeting.
So Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of Patriots takes place about 5 years after Metal Gear 2, and Snake's rapidly aging in that
He's
time.
got Jack disease.
Yeah, well, I think it's his nanobots made him old and grumpy, and he also is smoking like a chimney. In what we know to be his final mission, most likely final mission, he hunts down Ocelot, and who is now known as Liquid Ocelot because of the mind meld between the two. The Patriots succeeded in their goal of information limiting, and Ocelot is realizing that this is a bad thing and he shouldn't have been helping it, which is kind of cool because Metal Gear 2, like, they're not successful, which I really appreciate. Snake's objective kind of turns to destroying the AIs of the Patriots instead of hunting down Ocelot, and he succeeds, and he could finally just take a fucking nap and die in peace. Also, during like the big battle between Ocelot and Snake, Liquid Ocelot kisses Snake during the fight, which is what you were talking about. People go fucking crazy about it.
Which Snake are we talking about here? I'm sorry.
Solid Snake still.
Okay, Solid Snake. All right.
Finally, the last game in like the physical timeline, chronological timeline, not release timeline, is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. It's 2018. This is kind of like its own spin-off story. Raiden is now a cyborg ninja and has joined a private military firm. He has to defend a president of some unspecified African country. He fails his job. The president dies. He decides to get revenge while in his thoughty little cyborg body. I know absolutely nothing about that game, but
his butt is
crunchy,
beautiful, though.
Delectable. So
don't describe someone's butt as crunchy. What the fuck, Teese?
It's metal.
I'm
Would it not be?
canceling you.
Okay. Teese's call out post. Now we're going to talk about just the general experience of Metal Gear Solid, because like, okay, yeah, that's the plot, but like, what does this have to do with being gay? It's just a military game. And
well
because it is a military game and predominantly men and male main characters inside a game, people really love to ship these fucking characters. And Metal Gear Solid relies heavily on close quarters, barely missed opportunities, innuendo, and sweaty and buff man bod. So for people in shipping circles, this is a gold mine. The shit writes itself. It's pretty obvious if you've ever seen art or
people will ship
anything.
Characters who have never even interacted.
Yeah,
But this is the most convoluted, tangled up bullshit ever.
Yeah.
It is ripe for fan opportunities.
Exactly. So there are 5 main ships that tend to be focused on within the fandom. And the most popular by far is Odasune, which is Otacon and Solid Snake, followed by Bossalot, which is Big Boss and Ocelot. Then there is BB Kaz, which is Big Boss and Kazuhira Miller. And this also in this situation, and even for Bossalot as well, you could also use Venom Snake in this. Are you realizing things all of a sudden?
I'm just thinking about what an interesting dynamic that must be to write.
Yeah, and so you could also use Venom in this situation. And I've read some pretty good fics for it too. Like, there's a lot of talk about like, well, is this still the same person, even though you've been brainwashed to believe you're that person? It's very, very, very tasty. And then, of course, there's Ocelot and Kaz, because actually I don't know if there's a ship name for it. If there is, somebody please tell me. But there's also that good mixture of like, well, boss loved me, no boss loved me, blah, 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 as well as we are going to work together even though we hate each other.
Presidential alert, the girls are fighting.
To make Diamond Dogs in those 9 years that Venom Snake is passed the fuck out. So, and then there's also the final one, which is my personal favorite, which is Liquid Mantis, and that's Liquid Snake and Psycho Mantis.
Who the fuck is Psycho Mantis?
He's the one who tells you to unplug your controller in Metal Gear Solid.
You didn't tell me about that. Who is this character?
He's like a mini boss. He's the one who wears the trip pants and the gas mask, if you've ever seen fan art.
No, I haven't. Not once.
He's also a tasty little thotty. What's really cool about Metal Gear is that, like, with the first Metal Gear Solid originally, like, they have moments where Psycho Mantis is a psychic, and he will actually read what other games are on your memory card. So it'd be like, you've been playing Suikoden, haven't you? And you're like, what the fuck? How do you know? And Metal Gear Solid actually does like a really, this is totally off my notes, but Metal Gear Solid does a really cool job of game immersion. Like, for instance, in order to figure out one of the characters' codec, like, pager number, you actually have to look on the back of the game box and then see the screenshot that they used with her codec number in it, and that's how you find out what her codec number is for the game. And then there's, like I said earlier, like, at one point, Psycho Mantis starts, like, doing all this shit, and the only way how to make it easier on yourself is to actually unplug your controller and then put it into the Player 2 port, which I think is so fucking cool. Like, it does a lot of really cool fourth wall breaking, which I really appreciate.
I don't remember what that company is that every single Instagram model was shopping from for a while, but it looks like that's where Psycho Mantis picks up his outfits.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Like Fashion Nova.
Yeah.
He's a Fashion Nova baddie. So obviously there's like other tons of mixes when it comes to ships. You could pretty much ship anybody together because for the most part, in some degree of like the main cast, the characters do interact with each other. Like, there definitely could be a time when Ocelot and Otacon have talked to each other, or Kaz has had exposure to Mantis at some point. Like, there's, for the most part, you can kind of have everybody interacting in some way, shape, or form. Like, Otacon's dad worked for Big Boss, worked for Diamond Dogs in general type deal. So
there's
like,
material on every
There's
front.
material on all of them. Like, even if the age gap would be awful and terrible, but to some degree, like, everybody kind of can know who everybody is in universe, which is kind of cool. Okay. And there's also, because, like, let's be real, they're all punching each other, they're all shooting at each other.
So it's all problematic.
Yeah, it's all problematic. You could write fic for pretty much any of the characters mixed in some degree. But also,
I just want it on note that I meant that jokingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Like, I obviously will not ship a situation like Diamond Dogs era with Otacon and, like, Ocelot or something. Like, no, that'd be awful. Like, Hal would be 3 years old. Don't know. But Metal Gear Solid also has a habit of, like, completely disregarding its female characters as human beings, which really sucks. And I do want to mention that because
I have been told one of the chief arguments I heard from a guy trying to convince me to get into Metal Gear Solid was that it was a purposeful subversion of the genre, and that the way in which the women were hypersexualized and diminished actually made their characters stronger.
Bro, shut the fuck up.
The biggest load of shit I think I've ever heard.
Oh my god. Listen, as a Metal Gear Solid fan, I will tell you that's absolutely bullshit. So, I mean, as we were talking about earlier, Quiet, she's a character, she's great or whatever, but just because she gets her nutrients by photosynthesizing does not mean that she needs to be in a bikini doing tactical warfare.
Yeah, right? There have been dozens of articles written about how she could actually dress more effectively to photosynthesize. That would be less sexualized and way more practical.
So besides that, the characters are just also painfully outlandish, which kind of helps fans assign weird kinks and sexual fantasies to these characters, which in turn makes them even more readily available to ship because it kind of like builds in like an ethos to them type deal. And fanlore puts it really nicely. Thank you. I would die for fanlore. While making this podcast, I would die for fanlore. But Fanlore says, Kojima gave the squad of mini-bosses outsized personalities and quirks that were interpreted later as fetishes by a segment of the fandom. With a sniper who flirts by killing, and a mind-warping psychopath who forces the main female in the game to seduce Solid Snake, a sadistic gunslinger who makes sexual innuendos while reloading during battle, a ninja who moans in ecstasy every time he gets hurt, and an intentionally flirtatious conversation with a geeky and male scientist, fans were given plenty of fodder for creating their own backstories and situations with these characters. Because so many of these characters have outlandish personalities in a military setting, where there's already an emphasis on fraternity and camaraderie and stuff like that, comments about homosexuality is pretty easy to interpret, even if it is just a joke. And these kinds of things write themselves in a way. Within the game, Ocelot has phrases like, there's nothing like the feeling of slamming a long silver bullet mid-fight with Solid Snake. And that's like the first time you meet him for a lot of people if you've only ever played Metal Gear Solid first. So it's like...
Is this something where it was meant to be like funny or subversive and it just didn't land? Like...
Well, I think I think it does land. Like, I think people get that it's a joke, but because so many moments of dialogue are vaguely homoerotic in some way, it's really easy to, because like, when does a joke stop becoming a joke? You know?
But I mean, was it meant to be? Was this something where it was almost like a critique on the hypersexualization of war, really, in America, and like it wasn't read that way as it was meant to be?
I'm not sure. I really don't know. But even like in the Japanese version, it's kind of the same shtick.
It's kind of horny.
So, yeah, it's kind of horny. And there's some other moments I'll mention that's even like off the record stuff that's like, huh, interesting. So, and they're all innuendos. And even later in the first game, the iconic "Do you think love can bloom even on a battlefield" quote happens, which like really talk about the quote that sailed 1,000 ships, so to say. Like, that is the beginning ship quote for so many people when it comes to Odasune. And if you want to talk about just like general fan conversation, Raiden Raiden was even designed because a female fan complained to Kojima that there were too many ugly men in the series.
She's wrong, first of all. And Peaches is very angry about it.
Peaches is very angry. But it's also like, well, wouldn't you want to play somebody who's pretty? I get it. I mean,
nice too, like, if you're going to throw in, like, a bunch of hypersexualized women in really skimpy clothing, then, like, yeah, I'm going to hold you to the fact that you need to put your men in just as skimpy of clothing.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid has...
It's about equality.
Yeah. There's Sniper Wolf, who's in a very tight and sexy like jumpsuit, and there's Meryl, and like literally you're able to tell that Meryl is impersonating a guard because of how her ass sways. So like yeah, we did deserve a sexy little man. And even in the Japanese commentary, it's mentioned that from the first time Ocelot and Big Boss meet, they shared a pure love. Which, like, you can't make that shit up. Like, people who legitimately worked on this game is kind of hinting at a relationship forming, quote unquote. And reading between the lines is just so easy. Like, you don't even have to squint, you know? But unfortunately, the only person to straight up mention directly that they are gay in game is Strangelove, Hal's mother. And Strangelove is called Strangelove because she keeps getting comments that her attraction to women is odd, which, okay, Strangelove is supposed to be a gag towards Dr. Strangelove, or How I Stopped Loving the Bomb, or whatever the fuck it's called. And it's kind of like heartbreaking in a way that that's why her name is Strangelove. And unfortunately, she's in love with the boss, who ends up getting killed in Metal Gear 3, you know? And it's insinuated that they were an item at one point, and Strangelove hides audio diaries about how much she loves the boss, so Hal's father Huey would not find them while he's working on her later schematics and stuff like that. And I can't help but wonder why they decided to use Strangelove and the boss in the long run, and how they were able to exist as a couple in game, because both eventually die, neither are shown interacting in game, and at the end of the day, they're female side characters as opposed to main male characters, when there's just as much fodder, if not more, for these male characters. But they chose to do the boss and Strangelove And, like, I mean, that ship still hurts, but, like, I just wish it was a little more... If you're gonna pick a ship to be a LGBT ship, like, why are you gonna just pick these two side characters that,
because they are side characters and
Exactly.
they don't have huge visibility, and for fans who are homophobic, they are able to ignore it.
Yeah, I talk about that later. There's also a gag about a character named Vamp, and he is named Vamp not because he's a vampire, but because he's bisexual. And they
Hell yeah, king.
They literally say that in the game multiple times, which is kind of fun. But he, at the end of the day, is still just a reoccurring character that people don't really pay attention to because you just kind of fight him once or twice. He's in 2 and 4, and he's there, and he's bi,
Mm-hmm.
And one day we're gonna have to tackle an episode about how sapphic Wolawa women-loving women ships are treated differently than men-loving men ships in fan spaces, but that's for another time. And this episode's already going to be long as hell. So, but how can you make a game that implicates so much romance without being labeled as a romance game while still also being blunt about it? And then in turn, like, straight male fans can deny it. And truth be told, everything is hidden in plain sight via ambiguity. And it's done mixed with, like, an anti-war sentiment, but also then, like, the historical culture of homosexuality within the military. And, like, that's really big-brained of me to say, but it's kind of true,
No, and I mean, like, there's genuine legitimacy to that. I mean, I mentioned earlier, just in passing, the hypersexualization of war that exists, especially in America. But then, too, like, war is inherently it's a power play.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, I didn't even write about that. Holy shit. Oh boy.
There have been numerous articles and studies about, the sexual assaults that happen within the military and how a lot of them are not based in, sexual desire or romantic desire, but are based specifically in that, like, super toxic power mindset of dominating another person on a really horrific level. And it is... There's so much in America where you have there is so much entanglement with homosexuality and the military in America because so long ideas of joining the military to hide or escape present day life and don't ask, don't tell have walked hand in hand. That it is almost impossible to divorce the two. And, like, they kind of come up in direct notion with one another. So it's just like... And it's long-standing, but, like, these ideas of just, like, it is all men away from home for long periods and stretches of time with nobody else but their very close, intimate comrades who they speak very fondly of. Like, people read between the lines there and go, oh, y'all are gay.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't even stem even far back as that. This goes all the way back to ancient Greece. So
it goes back even further than that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. 100%. I mean, from the Wikipedia page, I'm citing Wikipedia, homosexuality in the militaries of ancient Greece. The first line is homosexuality in the militaries of ancient Greece was regarded as contributing to morale. Yeah. Just two dudes kissing. Like, that's a morale booster, I guess. Maybe a Russian taunt, like, sure, if you and the boys having a little kisseroo before, like,
well, I mean,
wow.
Let's be honest about that. You feel better when you are around people that you love. And
100%, yeah.
We can't necessarily ascribe terms of present day sexuality to people in the past who are not even familiar with those concepts. That's a huge thing. Like, please don't go around calling Alexander the Great, gay or bi or pansexual. Those words mean nothing to him. He's dead.
If you were to go back in time with Bill and Ted and visit Alexander the Great, he would be like, what are you talking about?
But if you're a person who enjoys sex, you're probably going to feel better and more confident and more relaxed if you're having sex.
Yep.
And if you're feeling more confident and more relaxed, you're probably going to perform better in battle, as silly as that sounds. So, like, it makes 100% sense that, like, this is a contributor to morale. Like, that is as much a bodily function as anything else. And, like, as you choose to indulge it, if you can indulge it safely,
Yeah.
Hell yeah, homie.
kissing the boys. So often cishet, usually male fans of Metal Gear Solid will claim that these passes at the characters, including even the scene where Liquid Ocelot kisses Snake, is a quote-unquote Russian taunt in order to get a rise out of Snake or to confuse him or something like that. And in reality, when you do let Ocelot kiss Snake, the little trophy icon is the symbol for I, which AI, as in like in Japanese I, which is like deep love and affection. Like if it was a Russian taunt, that would not be the symbol they're using, you know? So it's like, come on, you know, just accept it. Just accept that there's a little kisseroo going on. Just a little pass between two boys.
Look in the mirror and ask yourself, why does it have to be a Russian taunt? And why are you uncomfortable with it if it's not?
Exactly. And even in moments in Peace Walker, you could actually spend times with Kaz to kind of like relax yourself and boost your morale. And there's like mini game situations where you could take pictures of him, and like when you take a good picture of Kaz, like little hearts come up, and you can like, he gets really excited that you take photos of him, and even the two of you can sit together in a box that's pink and has a heart motif, and the box will shake when both of them are in it together, and the steam will come out of it like in The Sims when they woohoo. And yeah, sure, that's a morale booster with the boys.
Fuck yeah, it is.
But also the most famous group of LGBT soldiers were the Sacred Band of Thebes, who existed in the 300s BC, and it consisted of 150 couples that were soldiers.
As Plutarch described them with the line, "Since the lovers, ashamed to be base in sight of their beloved, and the beloved before their lovers, willingly rush into danger for the relief of one another."
They're protecting each other. They love each other. Like, they call, and even historically, they would call each other lover and beloved, depending on like age and different situation within the relationship. They exchanged secret vows, and they even partook in intercurral sex, which, if you don't know what that is, that's just bi fucking. And this like really works well with just the narrative of Metal Gear Solid. It's, once again, it's because the characters have bonds and they grow with each other, and they flirt in casual conversation, they protect each other, they care about each other. And especially in games like Phantom Pain and Peace Walker, where they live on these giant bases that they have to take care of all together, you're a mercenary group. The only people that you're truly fighting for are each other, because everybody else is just the paycheck for you. But you obviously want to take care of the people that you work with and are in these close quarters with. It's just like, even random NPCs will flirt with you throughout these games, and you could like knock on bathroom stall doors and like they'll invite you to come in and shit like that. And you can like look into showers, and you can like cup the balls of statues in games, and just like, come on, dude, just like admit that these characters are not straight in any way, shape, or form.
There's a point, right, where it's like you put so many innuendos in as a joke that they are no longer innuendos.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I was dabbing ironically for a very long time, but eventually I just began to love the joy of the dab itself.
It feels
and it
good
was
to
no
dab.
longer ironic.
Yeah, and even when it comes to becoming like a better fighter because you're a lover, there's a scene in Metal Gear 5 where Ocelot reiterates every single thing that he's learned after meeting Big Boss for the first time in Metal Gear 3, and it's like word for word verbatim. Like, I watched a very powerful video called The Top 283 Unquestionably Gay Things About Metal Gear Solid. Deep research I did this week, guys. And the person who made the video actually like went back and forth and showed each clip after another as like, this is word for word. They are like, even if it's just a callback, it ultimately shows that Ocelot really took Big Boss's words to heart. And at the time, they weren't even working together, but just the admiration was so evident that he's held onto it for all these fucking years. And MSF and Diamond Dogs in particular work together to be stronger soldiers and better fighters by learning and growing with each other, which is what I mentioned earlier before. And
I have a question.
Yes.
Is Phantom Pain a story about PTSD?
Oh, it could be. Very easily, I think.
Okay. I feel like I remember seeing sort of peripherally online a lot of stories about how Phantom Pain is like an examination of trauma. And a lot
Definitely.
of times I have found that many queer stories, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how they're written, do sort of fixate around the alleviation of trauma through a loved one.
Yeah,
Just another facet.
yeah, I could see that. I mean, I'm no expert. I have never actually physically played Metal Gear 5. I've just watched extensive cuts of people playing it, you know?
Phantom Pain's the one where the horse just shit in real time, yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Beautiful. Incredible.
Yeah. So, the other thing we also have to consider is the anti-war sentiment of the series, and it's a huge part of the narrative. I mean, between shooting at each other and figuring out who's double-crossing who, players begin to realize that greed and wars are ultimately what's hurting people in the long run. Phantom Pain explores this the most obviously, and in a press interview during E3 2014, Kojima talked a lot about the message of the game. In a written piece by Simon Parkin for The Guardian, Parkin quoted Kojima. In the past, the US was the center of the world, where everything was happening. I think my stories have always sought to question this, maybe even criticize it, but the situation is changing. America is not seen as the center of the world anymore, so the focus of my stories is shifting alongside with that change in the real world. Guantanamo was definitely something that I made decision to address in the game. Hollywood continues to present the US Army as always being the good guys, always defeating the aliens or foreigners. I'm trying to shift that focus. These movies might not be the only way to view current affairs. I'm trying to present an alternate view in these games.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, so plain and simple, Kojima just wanted to address these current event issues. And with Hollywood, I don't know how many people realize this, but many production companies have contracts with the Pentagon to avoid disclosing sensitive information. And
also specifically how they present the US military.
So
I don't think people realize that Marvel is literally contractually obligated to make sure that they present the US military in accordance to how the Pentagon sees fit.
And that also means that the Pentagon can censor Hollywood and makes, like what Cass said, you cannot criticize the war effort within the United States. And though obviously a game needs to be approved by a rating system in the United States in order to be sold, especially on this big of a level, Kojima chose to talk about Guantanamo because it's something that he doesn't necessarily agree with, you know? And yeah, these games are technically war propaganda, but also if you just think about it for more than 5 seconds, there is an anti-war sentiment to these games, you know? So Kojima even reiterates his themes within the press conference, like, outright. Parkin writes, he offers the example of Snake's military base in the forthcoming game. The message is an anti-nuclear weapons, he said, but it's not just about shouting that message at the player. Instead, he makes the point through non-written means. Through the game, the player is motivated to make a base and build their military center. At some point, when it reaches a certain size, the world begins to take notice, and in that sense, you become the threat. Countries begin to attack you. At this point, I give the player the option to think about acquiring a nuclear weapon in order to deter these attacks, a kind of threat. It illustrates the cycle of nuclear weapons that inspires people and nations to enter into that system. It's something that you can only do in video games. So, there's actually a secret ending in the Phantom Pain, and if all nuclear weapons are disarmed within the military complex of this game, you will get a secret ending. However, because this is a video game and people don't work like that, it's never going to be released, especially because it factors in the multiplayer experience. So when this game originally came out and that information leaked, it went from like 36,000 to about 12,000. But at the end of the day, we're never going to get that far. We're never going to finish them, you know? And now that this game has been out, 6 years, I don't know if we even have that ending uncovered, to be told, you know? And players must work together for the greater good in order to get that ending, which is really cool. And you have to build up a relationship with one another. And once again, teamwork is a form of love and friendship, and Kojima wants you to be impacted by that experience of camaraderie and working together. And how many of us have all made friends through video games? I mean, it's not a relationship, it's not love, but it still is a certain form of relationship where you care about somebody and you're making an effort together.
It can be.
Yeah, exactly. And
there are quite a few people who have met in Final Fantasy XIV, got married in Final Fantasy XIV, and then got married in real life.
yeah.
Which is so cool.
Mm-hmm. I've met a handful of couples on Neopets who like met each other through Neopets, and I think that's just wonderful. I love that. And we even see the anti-war sentiment in Snake Eater, which is way older than Phantom Pain. And it's on a more one-on-one personal level, which I think is really cool. And for instance, there's a character who tries to shoot Ocelot, and Big Boss physically stops her from shooting. And he says that Ocelot is just a kid and he still has a whole life to live and stuff like that, which I think is really cool because not often do we get to see like the quote-unquote macho protagonist give that option to the antagonist, you know, which I think I really appreciate it. And there's even a boss battle where you're forced to face the ghosts of every person that you've killed in game. So if you've only killed one or two, you only have to deal with one or two ghosts. But if you just have been killing people just for fun, then
as opposed to playing it like a stealth game as it's intended.
Yeah, you're going to have a bad time. And
mm-hmm.
there's a certain demand of respect and camaraderie that moves along the plot, which I really appreciate. And I use camaraderie a lot in this outline. I'm sorry. Every other cutscene also kind of includes some thinly veiled, like, I have some deep respect for you monologue. And it could be very easily read as I may even be infatuated with you. Mm-hmm. And over and over again, as we talk about this, it's really obvious that there's a certain like ambiguity that lends itself to this type of genre game. And The Guardian also talked about how Kojima wanted it to be kind of ambiguous.
Kojima wanted to focus on games in which the player must piece the narrative together from scraps of information and objects that they discover. Quote, the player is able to flesh out the detail and background of the game by discovering and listening to cassette tapes, he says. It's a different way to develop story, but one that is arguably more impactful. The player puts it all together in their mind.
There we go. So this kind of creates a certain form of mystery. You know, you have to actively hunt for all of these cassettes to get this information. It's like a blink and you miss it situation. And that's like really cool. But also, once again, I think that means that it could hide something that could be really impactful.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, with Dr. Strangelove and the Boss, though it's obvious from the tapes, it's up to you to find this information. The player can choose to hear the I love yous, the I did it for hims on their own terms, which, okay, yeah, I guess. But also at this point, I want to hear LGBT relationships front and center. I'm tired, you know? And as fans, we choose to either analyze these actions and dialogues or we choose not to. So maybe just as fan culture is in general, we want to see characters together and kiss. And maybe that's just in our nature. But if I was a game developer who wanted to have my male AAA game characters be gay with each other, I would love to just do it. However, when a chunk of your sales is coming from gamer dude bros who are usually homophobic, it's hard to suggest that when the company that you're working for is telling you that you can't do it, it might tank sales. Like, I get it. Yeah. It's a tired concept, but at the end of the day, it's an unfortunately true concept.
Well, and it's not just those dude bros, right? Because, I mean, like, studies have shown us over and over again that women are actually the larger market for video games at this point and spend more money on them. And it's the production. It's not the production studios. It's the producers of the games and your executives who are saying, no. Cowards. And I mean, even like look at Tracer from Overwatch or Ellie from The Last of Us. Like, these are female characters. Could you imagine what would happen if it was Solid Snake, the peak of masculinity, the character that so many men are like, I emulate Solid Snake. I want to be Solid Snake. It'd be like the guy from Drive coming out as gay. Like, Kojima would be crucified. Like, yeah, and I mean, there is something really, really heartbreaking in that because the underlying message there, right, is that a male power fantasy can no longer be a power fantasy if he is intimate with another man.
Yeah.
You know, the sexual conquest with a woman is one thing that's expected in a male power fantasy, but it is something that is really uncalled for, you know, apparently, if it's with another man, which is deeply disturbing and deeply heartbreaking and sends further home the ideas of toxic masculinity and how men need to behave with one another.
Yes. And even, like, I think it's interesting that they chose The Boss and Strangelove because it's like, hey, two older women
women that are sexy and are kind
MILFs.
they're kind of milfy. And once again, it like plays into like the lesbian power fantasy thing that men love in porn. And it's just like, I'm tired. Like, as a lesbian, I am tired, you know? And who knows, maybe if Kojima gets to keep the rights to Metal Gear, we'll see two male characters kiss and it's not a gag. But for now,
it's not a Russian taunt.
Yeah. Characters are kind of dead in the water. And when the series first came out, there was obviously shipping between Otacon and Dave, and because especially in Metal Gear Solid, they ride off into the sunset and they make jokes that their names are Hal and Dave, like in 2001.
Once again, Dave is Solid Snake.
Yes, it is. Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. So, like, they're named Hal and Dave, and it's funny because those are characters in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and how they should take a trip to Jupiter, and you know, they formed a bond, and hypothetically they're probably going off to a cabin somewhere in Alaska where Otacon will meet Solid Snake's huskies, you know? So, but then by the time that Metal Gear Solid 4
break that spine into with a good... I'm sorry.
So by the time that Metal Gear Solid 4 comes out, Otacon and Snake are literally raising a child together. And I love that because it's like fans can claim like, well, she's a super genius child and Otacon and Snake killed her mom. Like, what else were they supposed to do? Abandon the child? Well, Sonny didn't need to be adopted and then take the last name Emmerich, which is Otacon's last name, and neither one of them did not need to pretend that Sonny's awful scrambled eggs tasted good so they wouldn't hurt her feelings. Like, in the novelization, Snake even says the line, "I don't believe in God, Otacon, so you're the only one whom I can pray. Give me strength to do this now. Give me the resolve to protect the paths you and Sonny will take through life, and the world Meryl and the rest will build." Like,
that's gay as hell.
Yeah, he loves them. Like, he genuinely loves them at the, like
you pray on your knees, but you know what else you do on your knees?
Fuck yeah, buddy. Like,
I'm just saying.
All the people he's worked with over the years, like, he looks to them for strength. Like, Meryl is somebody in Metal Gear 1, and she's in Metal Gear 4 and stuff like that. And you look to Otacon for strength and guidance, and yeah, I guess he's a business partner, but who compares their business partner to God and give him resolve to protect his family's path? Like,
I guess love can bloom even on the battlefield.
It sure fucking can. And with ships like BB Kaz and Bossalot and Ocelot Kaz, it's kind of like this bond formed on the battlefield. It's learning from each other. It's like the lingering touches when fighting each other and patching each other up that happens. And you can use your imagination. You've all seen war movies. There's an active shipping scene with 1917. You don't need to use your imagination at all.
Well, that, with Dunkirk, with Band of Brothers, with Saving Private Ryan.
Master and Commander, like, all that shit. And even, like, with ships like Liquid Mantis, it's the whole theme of, like, two fucked up children against the world who grew up to only have each other as adults, and it's coming of age and exploration and acceptance in the worst way possible. And maybe just a fanatical and touch-starved fan who's been poisoned by internet ship culture, but I think there's something there, and clearly thousands of other fans do too, you know?
So you've now heard Teese's introductory lesson, the syllabus day for the course that they will be doing at your local college on why Metal Gear Solid is gay. Oh, can you imagine?
That would be.
I am sure that there is more than enough material to fill an entire college course on examination of Metal Gear Solid and homoeroticism.
Yeah, there's definitely academic texts. I didn't really read a lot of them because I didn't necessarily need what they were talking about or have time, but it's there and it's real. Mm-hmm. So I think it's something that, especially as video game studies and fan studies continues to grow, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a bigger boom as time goes on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I also have some recommended reading or watching or whatever you want to call it, similar to how Cass did with our It episode. So I just want to preface this that as a whole, despite Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear existing since the late 80s and coming out through now to 2015, the fandom is in fact still kicking, and So in turn, there is always new stuff. So maybe in a few years, this might be outdated. There might be a whole new Metal Gear canon that we don't even know about. And there's tons of fics that I love, but I'm not necessarily going to mention because I want to try and focus on some bigger fan works that are accessible. And this probably should go without saying, but because of what Metal Gear deals with, it could be very triggering for a lot of people. And obviously, there's war, there's blood, there's guts, there's gore, there's killing. But sometimes the fandom can be a little unsavory when it comes to topics. So please pursue this media at your own risk. Look at the trigger warnings and tags before fan fictions. Check does the dog die, read some TV tropes page, XYZ, But I tried to include works that aren't out of the norm for what comes with kink in these situations for this fan base, and it doesn't really cover any outlandishly large triggers outside of what the current lore of the franchise is. But still, be safe. Obviously your mental health is way more important than reading a really good fan fiction. So the first thing I want to talk about is Yellow Cake, which is an experimental comic focusing on Kazuhiro Miller and his sacrifices made for the snakes, and it's written by Million Fish. This comic is so fucking tasty. The first time I read it, I didn't really have an understanding about Metal Gear as a whole. Like, I was just getting into it, but I had friends who really, really loved the comic. But as you grow to learn the lore of the series, it becomes a richer experience each time, and it tackles themes of like the passage of time and sacrifice, and it's blended so painfully well that I really cannot emphasize how beautiful it is. Like, even from an artistic standpoint, it's striking. It's fantastic storyline. People get tattoos of panels from this comic constantly. I have a friend who flew all the way to Toronto for TCAF to get a physical printing of this comic. And it's never been printed again after the one time for TCAF. Yeah, like it's like a collector's piece, oddly enough. Like, it's important to the fandom, and there's a reason why it's so highly praised. And just like to vouch for it, and Miller, in my opinion, is one of the most tragic characters in Metal Gear because he's always there in the background. And like, obviously I've just talked about this whole entire series, but I don't really talk about it. I didn't talk about him that much, but he's there the whole time. I mean, there's even a line within Yellow Cake that says Atlas the Titan holds up the world and endures a little longer, which that hurts so bad. And in a way, that's like the main theme for all of the characters in this series, because it's about like espionage and covert secret war efforts, and like it's a thankless profession, and they continue to endure a little bit longer to hold peace for the people. But in the end of the day, who endures a little bit longer for the soldiers themselves? And it's Miller, he's never shown really on the field, but he cares for everybody so deeply. And Miller's backstory revolves around being a half American, half Japanese child in Japan post World War II. And he faces like severe othering from both sides, and in an attempt to find answers and also money, he kind of joins the military, and things don't go planned, but he eventually finds himself at the wrong end of Big Boss's gun. And from there, they form a friendship and a bond, and the relationship grows. And Miller's relationship to most of the characters is kind of found family, but also it's like a second chance situation. And Yellow Cake captures the idea of you must keep moving forward incredibly well. And oh boy, it's so good. I reread it in preparation for this episode, and just I cannot recommend it enough. It really is fantastic. And then the next thing I have is a pretty popular fan fiction called Hello World, written by Krieger-san, and it is set post Metal Gear Solid 1 through post Metal Gear 2 / the Tanker Incident, as it's sometimes known as. It's about 80,000 words. It was published in 2015, and the AO3 page says that the series is not done, but it's been 6 years since it's updated. I'm not going to hold my breath for it. And but it's really good. It's really well written, and Hello World kind of drops a lot of like the philosophical conversations that matches up with the Metal Gear universe while slowly painting a budding relationship naturally. It's exciting. You get to see Hal show Dave Serial Experiments Lane in Neon Genesis Evangelion. You see their relationship form in between long road trips and sharing two small beds. They begin to trust each other and care for each other. It's natural, and it picks up where players leave off at the end of Metal Gear 1 in ways that kind of fill in the gaps. And there's a certain domesticity in it while keeping to the lore of Metal Gear Solid 1, which I really appreciate. And we don't really know what happens in between the Metal Gear games unless it's given to us by Kojima himself. But Krieger-san does a really wonderful job filling in the blanks and making the conclusions to what we see in the later games. And the romance just comes so naturally. And like, for instance, there's like a really heartbreaking moment where they talk about Hal's past abuses and some of his harder moments in life. And this fic is a slow burn, but it's done beautifully well. Like, I even the dialogue itself feels natural within the realm, and long car rides let them kind of talk to each other and change their just interpretations of each other. And the two, like, just, I actually ended up I have like quotes from this because I just feel like it does such a good job of capturing the spirit of the series. And for instance, one of them is, I guess you're right. Besides, Rex wouldn't physically exist if myself hadn't dreamed it up in the first place. Hal laughs self-consciously. Leave it to me to unleash a death machine into the free market because I wanted so badly to believe I was doing something good for the world. No, Hal, your experience of the world led you to believe that people are intrinsically good. You built something that meant something to you. In that image, Snake exhales smoke, stares straight ahead. Other people interpreted your physical contributions in a way that reinforced their worldview. And that's from part 2 of the series Elsif. And here, I mean, Otacon and Snake are just talking about Metal Gear Rex, the first Metal Gear he ever designed. And at the end of the day, it is a weapon of mass destruction, and nobody makes something intrinsically bad. But he ultimately feels like he just wanted to impress his father and follow in his footsteps more than anything. And I feel like that's something that so many people can relate to. And even they touch on like moments of, well, when do you stop becoming a soldier and when do you stay a human, outside of these things. And there's a part in Infinite Loop, which is part 3 of the series, and Dave Solid Snake says it's like a rat hitting the wall. He shoots the person because he's been conditioned to shoot a person. His body reacts ahead of his brain without having the experience or true understanding of what it means to take a life of another. He doesn't have the ability to properly assess the situation or to determine the consequences of his action prior to committing them. This quote is in relation to a VR training because there is VR training in the actual games, but they're only optional, which is kind of nice. And it's a pretty natural conversation to have, but it also reminds the readers of the basic philosophy of Metal Gear Solid. Like, you can always have the choice to choose. Even if you are given a mission, you can choose not to hurt somebody. You can go against orders, but you need to reflect on the effects things have on you and the people around you, which is why these games are stealth. Like, you can choose to kill people, but you can choose to hide in a box. You can choose to go through the vents, and you need to have empathy and critical thinking skills more than you have to be a killing machine. And Dave chooses to make philanthropy, which is what spurs on Metal Gear 2. And, he chooses to not always be violent, which I really appreciate that the writer continued to focus on, So there's that. And then something a little more goofy, but there is in fact a shirt labeled Metal Gay Solid shirt. And this is made by the artist Androphonus, better known as Lucas C. And the shirt took screenshots from 200 Tender Souls arguing over which Metal Gear Solid character is gay. This forum on GameSpot is locked and began over 10 years ago. Obviously, from this episode, it's a pretty common discussion within fandom, and there's a lot of denial from fans. And even in an interview with BuzzFeed News, Lucas went on to say, it's about highlighting the absurd reasons people come up with to deny even the smallest hint of queerness in media because it's something they feel threatened by. It's as if even liking a male character who might also like dudes defines them personally.
Boo.
Boo.
But
This piece-
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, he is 100%. And this piece blew up online, but also like smack dab in the middle, it's a Russian taunt is slapped right in the middle of the shirt.
Well, so this immediately reminds me of a lot of the stir that Dragon Age frequently kicks up when a new game comes out. So there are Dragon Age, there is a lot that ties into the romance mechanics of the games. And there are a lot of people who are completionists who want to understand the full story of the game and get the full experience out of it. And so part and parcel of doing that is romancing gay romance options. And there is like a whole forum of straight men who either realized they were gay or who sort of finally realized the error of their homophobia by romancing the gay romance options in Dragon Age, because suddenly they were sort of forced to confront the situation with nothing but empathy, because the romances there are presented so clearly as being just romance. They're normal, they're accepted, they are wonderful. And it's just, again, if by some happenstance you're a straight dude listening to our podcast who's very uncomfortable with the idea of these characters being seen as gay, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why you're uncomfortable with that implication. And I mean, even if you're a queer person who's uncomfortable with that implication, I think it's really important to examine why. Because we are not exempt from levels of homophobia, internalized or what have you. And I think they afflict us just as much as any other person, maybe even more so. There's a difference between a fan who says, well, they may not canonically be confirmed as gay, right? Versus a fan who is like very adamantly trying to deny it and find any evidential proof that they are not gay. Because who does it hurt?
Yeah.
Who does it hurt for them to be gay?
Yeah.
And God, isn't that such like, queerness adds so many other facets to storytelling that haven't been explored before, because our storytelling has been so dominated by straight people. And it's like, why wouldn't you want the opportunity to look through a totally new and unfamiliar lens to you and go, holy shit, that puts a whole new spin on this. Like what, and this of course is coming from somebody who very much likes to look at media from all different perspectives. I understand that's not where everyone has fun, but like for me, that opportunity to look at something in a totally new perspective is so engaging and so exciting. I don't know, maybe you just don't love Metal Gear as much as I do now.
Maybe Cass has just become the #1 Metal Gear fan. You also can buy this shirt on ArtCow. You could just give a Google Metal Gay Solid shirt ArtCow. It will come up. Support the artist. I am tempted, and a lot of people have kind of made like recreations of the shirt too, which I just think is so fucking funny and charming. I love it. It's so good.
Let's get matching shirts.
Oh my
Do they
God.
come in black?
I don't know. I don't think so. It might. I'd have to look
I don't wear
again.
white shirts.
Me neither. Not really. So, followed by, I wanted to mention also Pliskin Press, which is an anthology group that regularly releases Metal Gear related fan works. Most recently was The Lost Years, which is a zine about the moments between game canon. Pliskin Press has about 3 anthologies out. Unfortunately, because of COVID, their store Envy is currently closed. But if you are into purchasing digital zines, you can buy their stuff via Gumroad. Their 3 anthologies include comics and fic of that nature, pretty standard stuff. And their 3 zines, their shortest is Legends, which is 32 pages and focuses generally on Metal Gear characters that holds our attention. And then it is Let the World Be is an Odasune zine, and that is about 60 pages, which a friend lovingly let me borrow their copy of. I never got a chance to read it, but I've heard it's really good. And then followed by The Lost Years, which is an ambitious 250 pages. And I remember when it came out, I was like, wow, this is tasty. And then I just forgot to pre-order it until it was too late. I should
get
probably
the digital one. And we'll have links to all of these fics
Yes.
and properties we're mentioning in our tweet thread. If any of you can think of a better way for us to preserve the accessibility of those links, because I know if you happen to come back to this episode way down the line, please let us know. We're talking about making a spreadsheet of some sort But if you can think of anything that would better service you as our community, we would love to hear it.
Yes, thank you. And then finally, I'm going to just talk about my favorite fic in the fandom. So I really like $256.95 by Hingaby and Punished Purter. And these two writers in particular are a long-time constant within the Liquid Mantis realm. It's about 3,500 words. It was like originally for a gift drop, so it was like for a fandom circle thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to highlight this fic because I think it's like really short and it works really well in the canon compliant setting, but still being a pre-Metal Gear Solid fic, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it's technically a phone sex fic.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. But it still explores the interactions between Liquid Snake and Psycho Mantis in a way that shows that these characters clearly grew up with each other, and it's like all the awkward in-betweens of relationships, and they clearly have been, like, literally within lore of this series, they have been inseparable since they are 10 years old. Like, Psycho Mantis escapes his childhood confinement center, and Eli is off being just a little prick running around with other child soldiers that they like made their own military group, and then eventually they actually like hijack a Metal Gear, and then they fuck off and live in a jungle together. I'm like,
sorry, I'm just picturing like Madeline style children hijacking Metal Gear.
I'm gonna have to send you pictures. And like, truth be told, guys, Liquid Mantis is like my OTP. I love them. Like, I don't really post about them. Like, obviously I know I'm kind of like considered a Furdy Bird apologist from like what you can see that I post on Twitter, but like Liquid Mantis is like my all-time fucking favorite ship. I love them so much, but like I do not interact with anybody who follows them besides my own friends. Like but I really do like this fic, and I just think it's really great communication and banter between the two characters, and I think it's really fitting and just a fun combination of just tenderness and the bite between these characters that we see pretty often. And a lot of the fics playing to the issue of Psycho Mantis's lack of interest in sex, but his need for comfort and kind of like relating sexual situations and how it might not always be comfortable for you, and just like missed opportunities and like miscommunication and stuff like that. And this fic walks a really nice line of interest in sex, but also like fiercely denying the want and need for sex, and then it's just like a really realistic way, and I just think it's good. I just really like it. So those are my recommendations for the Metal Gear Solid fandom. I hope you guys like them if you read them. But yeah, thanks.
I loved this.
Did you?
This was so delightful and so wonderful, and I feel like I actually have a better foothold of understanding on Metal Gear Solid than I ever have before, when people have tried multiple times to explain it to me. And now I have a page of notes I can go back to.
Yay! I really tried so fucking hard to be like, how am I going to showcase Metal Gear without absolutely giving away information, but also to convince him to want to explore the series on his own time and in his own way. And
congratulations, you did it. No one else has done it before.
I'm really happy. I really love Metal Gear, and granted I've only been a fan for 3 years, but I there's a lot about it that I really care about and I relate to, and there's a lot of things about it that just speak to me on certain levels and my own personal just like life and stuff like that, and I really like it, and I think it's really fun. And like, yeah, I stick my fingers in my ears and just scream while Kojima keeps talking because like, shut up, you don't know how to write a woman. But
isn't he married?
Yeah, he has children.
What?
Yeah, I mean, he's like really hush hush about his personal life, but he does have children,
understandably.
Yeah,
you know, good for him.
Yeah, but I love this series, and one time Troy Baker sold him weed, and he tweeted about it, which
I do remember that. Yeah,
I love. So yeah, I hope people enjoyed this. Thanks for coming on my Metal Gear Solid journey, Cass.
This was absolutely delightful. I would love if one day we can even expand further on this.
Yes,
I think,
yes.
Hell yeah. If you enjoyed this episode or have enjoyed our podcast in the past, we would really appreciate if you could give us a like or a review on whatever podcasting platform you are listening to us via. It super helps us out, helps us, reach more people and find more people who are interested in our show. If you want to help us in another way, we do have a Ko-fi that is ko-fi, and we are Authors Note Pod over there. We also have something super exciting coming on Friday of this week, so keep your eyes peeled chiefly to our Twitter for that, but if not, you'll hear about it next week anyway. If you ever want to reach out to us directly or get in contact with us, be that for an episode idea or, you just want to hit us up to talk about something, we are on Twitter at Authors Note Pod. We are also on Instagram at Authors Note Pod, and you can always email us at authorsnotepod@gmail.com. If you are interested in pitching an episode idea, we have a link to our website on our Twitter where you can find all sorts of helpful information about making your pitch the most effective it can be so that, we can look at it and really kind of determine if it's a good fit for us and if it's a good fit for you.
If you don't have a Twitter, our website is just authorsnotepod.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to find more of me and my work, I am everywhere on the internet learning about Metal Gear Solid at Valhethel. That's VALHETHELLA. Teese, if people want to find you screaming about Metal Gear, where can they get you at?
You can find me at Vicuña. That's VICUNAD. I've been talking about Metal Gear nonstop on Twitter for this past week. I've been preparing for this episode for so long, and I'm so happy this went so well. If you enjoyed our theme music, that was by James Waiulo. You could find him on Bandcamp under James Y. Make sure you support your favorite artists on Bandcamp on Fridays. Bandcamp Friday, the artists get a little bit more of the profits than they do any other day of the week, and especially during COVID, there has been a really big push to support artists on Bandcamp Friday. You could also buy merch from some artists through Bandcamp, which is just super cool if you are a music person. And Cass, who did our cover art?
Our cover art was done by the incredible Nyaliest. You can find her on Twitter at Nyaliest. That's NYALLIEST. Until next time, make sure you're wearing your masks, socially distancing, not eating out at restaurants, not even outside. Go eat in your car or wherever else. And as always, please stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
What a fear in my heart, but you're so supreme.